All right, it's 2 o'clock. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. We're going to get going here. Welcome to the second edition in our series of Linville Team Partners roundtable discussions. We've had well over 200 people register for this call. We got tons of great information to cover today with our three guests. Some you may know, some you may not know. So we'll make proper introductions and share everything we can with you guys, with our guests. A quick plug for our next roundtable will be on May 21st at 2 p.m. So 2 weeks from tomorrow at 2 p.m. We'll be hosting a locally owned retail roundtable discussion with Keith and Emily Davis of Fleet Feet Sports and New Balance at Thruway, Sammy Giannopoulos of Crisp Hospitality Group, Fratelli Steakhouse on Ronaldo Road, Three Bowls Tavern in Clemens, and Sammy G's in High Point, and Claire Calvin of The Porch, Alma Mexicana, and Canteen on 4th Street. We should be nearing the start of phase 2, hopefully. It should be some interesting conversation and things to share with other retailers, their customers, property owners alike. So a few quick notes regarding our call today. We're going to have 30 minutes of just casual conversation with each of our guests, and then a 30-minute Q&A session moderated by Ben Bloodworth, one of my partners at Linville Team and co-host for today. Please feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen at any time throughout the call. Those questions will roll in, and we'll get to as many of them today as we possibly can. And if there's, we'll try to get them answered after the call if we can't get to them on the call and share those with you. This call is being recorded, and we'll share it with each of you via email, and it'll be available on all of our social media outlets very soon as well. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our three guests. Porter Jones, founder of DPJ Residential, Coleman Team, partner of Front Street Capital, and Simon Burgess, managing partner of Mayfair Street Partners. Guys, thanks so much for taking time out of your hectic and busy schedules to join us on the call today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Coleman, we'll start with you. I think you've got, at this point, the most active construction project in downtown Winston-Salem at Bailey South. Can you give us a little update on Bailey South and how it's going there?
Sure. You know, going into these projects as a developer, you try to hedge and understand all the potential risk factors in a project like this, or any project really. And this is certainly not one that we planned on. You know, about a month or two ago, when we were kind of entering all this, both us and our general contractors, landmark builders, were significantly concerned that they were going to shut down, you know, construction as an essential business. And spent, you know, the next few days, you know, very heavily weighing what would happen with that. But fortunately, it has been deemed an essential business, and Bailey South is still under construction. So construction certainly has slowed slightly, simply because of the fact you cannot have as many subs and, you know, people on the site all at the same time to safely distance everyone and keep everyone in a responsible manner on site. But construction has remained, and when you talk about a schedule, we really are maybe a week or two. So it's had not a significant material impact on the overall construction schedule, but they're managing not only on-site stuff, but you're also managing vendors and product and things that are going into these offices and retail spaces that are all experiencing a little bit of a delay. But huge props to Landmark. They've been incredible trying to keep everybody on board, and most importantly, keep everybody safe. So it has been a daily and weekly, you know, kind of saga dealing with all this, but everything is rolling, and we will be pushing for a CO on the building. We're inside of 45 days, which is a bit, you know, crazy to think about, but we will be getting a CO on the building sometime in the middle of June.
It's really cool. You know, the last month, 2 months, 45 days, whatever, of a construction project is when it really starts coming together, and it's looked cool for a long time, but just in the last week, it has gone from cool to just wow. It is such an awesome project and asset for downtown Winston-Salem, and we're excited to have, you know, just a very small part of that in the leasing. But commend you guys on building something that is just an absolute gem in downtown Winston. How has, or do you anticipate any sort of delays with any of the retail tenants related to this, or how are those conversations going?
Great question. We are those are outfits are delayed a little bit anyways. Kind of a blessing, at this point in time. Nobody wants to open a restaurant in the next 30 to 60 days. So because of the construction and how we're actually having to build the building, those tenants are slightly delayed anyways. So we will be delivering those retail spaces, the 2 anchor restaurant concepts, by the end of the summer. Hopefully by that time, there will be a little more confidence in the general consumer going out and participating in life as usual in a restaurant, albeit maybe slightly less dense. But those outfits are pressing forward. Those owners are very excited about the opportunity. I think they're going to be a really unique new to Winston concepts for both of them. So I don't know about y'all, but I'm going to be itching for a little pent up social engagement. So
no doubt about that.
I think it'll be a good opportunity for people to experience these new concepts down in the Innovation Quarter. But, the operators are excited. They've obviously gone through 3 months of, stress trying to figure out how this is impacting them and when they want to safely reopen. But, this is going to be on a timetable we're both going to feel comfortable with, and it should be by the end of the summer.
By the end of the summer.
Yeah.
And then what about the rest of the building again?
So the office and about 80% of the office is occupied. So those 2 office tenants, one being Front Street Capital, our company, and the other one being the Variable. The Variable is the anchor tenant occupying both 6 and 5. And I encourage you to look on social media. They got an incredible upfit, and it's going to be a really phenomenal office. I think one of the coolest designs in town, and that I've been into nationally, to be honest. We will all be occupying in June.
In June. Will the rail line open at that point?
The rail line will be open probably by the end of June. Now you can see where the stairs are going to be going down into the coal pit. You can see the finishing touches on the new railing going down 4th Street. There's got some cleaning up to do, but that will largely be ready by, CO on the building. So it should be in the next 45 days.
Gotcha. That's great. Tell us a little bit about how the Morris building that you guys also own plan to be incorporated into that whole block. Anything
Sure.
you can share with us regarding that?
That's another about 22 to 24,000 square feet of what we had planned to be 100% retail. We are working with an out-of-state, kind of industry-leading food and beverage consultant, helping us manage that project and potentially bring in some outside of Winston, really high-touch operators. And the conversation, and we touch base with those guys probably, every other week on what they're seeing on a national restaurant hospitality basis. And it's obvious to say that industry has changed in its entirety. Where people's cash reserves are going, what people's bandwidth is for expansion. We're not slowing down on the Morris building. We actually had a conversation about this with Landmark yesterday about what the project is going to look like and how, if it may be tweaked. It's certainly going to come on the heels of this. We want to keep the momentum in the Innovation Quarter going, especially coming off the heels of Bailey. But, we've got some good prospects for additional restaurant and retail concepts in Bailey. That's obviously the primary focus right now. And the Morris building will continue to conceptualize over the next, 6 to 12 months.
Sounds good. I look forward to hearing more information about that. That's just going to be another killer project. As you were talking about, your project has been so transformative along with everything in the Innovation Quarter. And I think about, Porter, what you're doing in the West End neighborhood, and Simon in the Center City. I mean, you guys have really transformed 3 important critical nodes to the growth of downtown Winston. And, Porter, most people on this call probably don't know who you are or the projects that you've even worked on. Not being from Winston, you've kind of flown under the radar a little bit, which is really cool. But tell us a little bit about yourself and the 2 projects that you've completed, and why Winston?
Yeah, no, I actually kind of like flying under the radar, so I appreciate that compliment. But no, I started my own firm called DPJ Residential back in 2015. Prior to that, I had worked for a large apartment developer out of Atlanta and learned a lot from them, but knew ultimately I wanted to do something on my own and something a little bit more boutique and be able to build in areas that maybe the larger developers really weren't focused on in. And so yeah, what we do is we basically build apartment communities throughout the Southeast, primarily in North Carolina and South Carolina. We really focus on locations that are in the early stages of revitalization. We like locations that are close to job centers, typically downtowns. And we really like to be within historic neighborhoods, which is sometimes very challenging because you're trying to build a new project and something that has a lot of history to it. So it's hard to create that synergistic balance, so to speak. But we really appreciate design, and we try to build our projects so that they actually fit into historic neighborhoods as opposed to just kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. Every project we do, we start from scratch. So we don't reuse any sort of plans. Everything is completely custom. We like to work with consultants that are local to particular markets who know, a particular market just better than we're ever going to know. And so, yeah, we just really focus on mostly urban infill, highly walkable or bikeable communities where people can get to work really quickly. And then on the weekends, they can enjoy restaurants, bars, other, green spaces, parks, baseball stadiums, everything like that. So that's kind of our focus. And we really see Winston as kind of under the radar too, like our firm. So it works for our strategy.
That's great. I'll tell you, your architectural design comment resonated with me. The project is beautiful. I love it. And, you hear a lot of people, I follow a lot of different social media groups and outlets, and a lot of people complain about different people's architecture, whether it's an office building or an apartment project. I think apartments probably get kicked harder than anybody else, but particularly when the renderings came out for Easily, I remember thinking, man, I hope Porter's not looking at these social media outlets. And then you came out with that rendering and it was like, boom, everybody was clapping and cheering for it. And it's just a really cool looking project. I can't wait to see it built. How did Winston get on your radar?
Yeah, good question. So my business partner, like every developer out there, or most developers, I rely on other people for financing. And my business partner is a large apartment owner and operator out of Raleigh. And they own around 8,000 units throughout the Southeast. And back in 2014, they actually bought a property called Gallery Lofts. And for those not familiar, it's basically a block or two from Innovation Quarter on 6th Street. It was a former textile mill, I believe, that was repositioned to an apartment community, kind of loft style apartments back in like 2009, I think. So he had bought it 2014, and out of his 8,000 units, it was literally like, if not the best performer, like within the top 5% of his portfolio. It stayed full from 14, 15, 16 and more. And so he kind of mentioned it really in passing that maybe we should be looking at Winston-Salem because his occupancy stayed high, his rents were relatively high. And so I really started doing more research on Winston and saw a lot of similarities to some of the other markets we've developed in, like we've developed in Savannah, Georgia, downtown Wilmington, and some neighborhoods in Charlotte as well. And, although Winston doesn't get a lot of press for population growth or employment growth, there's been very little apartment supply. Basically from the downturn. So coming out of the downturn in 2010, 2011, like literally the faucet turned off. And so basically for 6 or 7 years, there was virtually no development in Winston-Salem for apartments. And so that created this big void in the market that we believed we're now just filling. So we actually don't think a lot of people ask me, like, do you think you're going to overbuild in Winston-Salem? I mean, to be honest, like we look in markets like Charleston, Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, and although they get a lot of job growth, a lot of population growth, what we look at is a relative metric. And the metrics are such that, for example, Charleston is projected to add more apartment units over the next 5 years than they're projected to add jobs. So
Wow.
that's not a good situation. Like, you typically want to be about 1 unit for every 3 or 4 new jobs that are being added to the market. And so, you know, Winston, if we build 500 units a year for the next 5 years, that's pretty much in line with historical averages. And so, and meanwhile, you're filling that gap that was created from 2010 all the way to 2016. So it's kind of a double whammy, so to speak.
I think I've assumed that people know your 2 Winston projects. I just got a text from somebody that says, "Where are Porter's projects?"
Oh, okay.
Why don't you tell us that too?
Yeah, so the first project we built is called West End Station, over in the West End market near 4th Street, near the BB&T ballpark. It's bordered between Brookstown Avenue and Green Street. I believe it was where Krispy Kreme and others had kind of big plans. I think there was an IMAX at one point planned there. It was called West End Village. And so we came in, a group out of either Atlanta or Charlotte had that property under contract to do a pretty ambitious kind of mixed use project. And we were able to, just kind of through luck and relationships and right time at the right place, we were able to get it under contract. And we've got 229 units at that location. It's fully amenitized, very walkable, very bikeable. And we started building that in March of 2017, completed and had our first move-ins in March of 2019. And then we sold it, closed in December of 2019 when it was about 90% occupied. And because of that success, we were able to actually buy some land literally across the street that borders, I want to say 1st Street, 2nd Street, and Broad Street. And that's a little over 4 acres. And we're planning a project called the Easley that will be 300 units, again, fully amenitized with leasing, clubhouse, yoga, fitness, saltwater pool, and actually should have some pretty amazing views of downtown as well as towards the baseball stadium.
Will there be any retail at that development?
We do not have any retail. It's only the apartments and the amenities.
Gotcha. Linville Team has been pretty active in that submarket with some investment sales and whatnot, and it's just really exciting to see it come to fruition. I worked as a young teen in a carpet warehouse on Burke Street, and so I've had my eye on it forever. And that was kind of my stomping ground as a kid. Grew up about a mile away from there, so it's really cool to see what you've done. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. No, we're looking forward to that.
Where did the name Easley come from?
So as I mentioned, we like to hire kind of local consultants. And so we hired a group called Airtype, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. Brian Ledbetter and his team does a really good job. And I tend to outsource things that I'm not really good at, and being creative isn't really my specialty. So I tasked them with trying to find a name that, again, has some sort of historical meaning to this area. And so they came up with the name. It's an old former Easley cookie company, which dates back to like the 1920s. I think they eventually got bought out by Royal Cake Company and then sold to like Flowers Bakery. But it's basically like a Little Debbie, I think was kind of what they're known for, like the, cream-filled oatmeal cookies. And so, I had a tie to basically Winston back in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And we also just we kind of like the name. So
yeah, it's a cool name.
Yeah.
Really cool. All right, Simon, Uh, Simon, you have got a ton of projects going on that have been talked about and announced over the last several years. And, you know, fortunately, Linville Team's been involved in a lot of those. So we appreciate the opportunity to work with you and build a relationship with you over time. Can you give us a quick update on your projects, particularly Indigo, Hyatt Place, and everything in the Central Business District?
Yeah, obviously the Indigo, with the present COVID-19, the restaurant is closed with the exception of takeouts in the evening. The hotel is still operating, although the occupancy is very low. It's probably 3 to 5 people a night. However, we do see a good light at the end of the tunnel. We're nearly fully booked out for the whole month of October already, the hotel. So I think for the last quarter of this year, I think when we get ramped up again and going, I think we're going to have a good finish to the year.
That's good to hear.
Obviously, our concern with COVID-19 is the new build Hyatt Place, but we've had our equity investors and our banks both confirmed, subject to a 90-day suspension, which was March, April and May, that they're going to move forward with us on it. The problems with any new build hotel at the moment is if a bank asks for a feasibility study or an appraisal, it's going to be nearly impossible to give feasibilities of ADRs and occupancies. So our investors are still keen to move forward on the Hyatt Place. The extension to the Indigo, we don't know when we're going to start that, but we decided we couldn't get the construction cost of condominium apartments to come in line. So we're actually going to extend the Indigo Hotel and add another 54 bedrooms to that, but we don't know when that's going to start at the moment.
Is that what you refer to as the Crawford Building?
Yeah, the Crawford Building, people ask me where that name came from. We didn't come up with it. It was actually called the Crawford Building, and it was demolished, I believe, around 2005. Some locals online might know better, 2006. It was damaged by a hurricane, but it had, and funny enough, Helen Schmiel put it on Facebook this last week. It had a beautiful facade with very ornate columns on it. So it was a beautiful looking building. It was a shame it was demolished. So we just refer back to it as the Alta survey stated as the Crawford Building. So that's what
okay.
happened. So both them projects in turn will trigger off the start of construction of the Mercial Park, which is obviously, again, we were ready to go to committee in March, and obviously COVID-19 has delayed that final committee meetings. We've had some infrastructure issues on it where after cammering down the stormwater and the sewers, we found that they're not in a state to keep, so we're having to replace more, and we're having to come into 4th Street and Trade Street. So there's been some design difficulties which we think we should be getting over in May or June. So we're hoping now, we were ready to start May the 1st, but it's probably going to be September the 1st with the delay, but we still think everything's going to go ahead as planned with the Hyatt Place, 132 bedrooms and 54 bedroom extension to the Indigo.
Oh, nice. Are you still planning to park cars on the racking system like was talked about at one point?
We are, but not as many. We've reached, since the original plans included to go under part of the park, but again, the cost became too expensive. So we've got approximately 48 spaces below. So we will be leasing other parking spaces from local decks or city decks, but we still intend to put 2 level elevators so that we'll get 48 cars underneath the Hyatt. And it'll be valley parking, obviously, only valley parking only.
Right. That's a very big city. It's neat to see that in downtown Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
How has the last 2 months affected the Automotive Associates building on Liberty and your plans there?
You know, if you'd asked me early March, I would have thought it would have affected it a lot. But to be honest, we're working very closely with the Legacy Bank, and they've been tremendous through this. And we're hoping to close the loan on it at the end of May and start asbestos abatement and demolition end of May. So that one's moving through. We're ready to submit for permit end of this week. The GMP should be sorted next week. We've got all the tenants in place, ready to start. So that one, surprisingly, is going a lot quicker. Being a historical building, we would have expected it to take a lot longer to get ready to start, but it's actually going to start quicker than what we expected.
Can you share who those tenants are? I know you announced some early, but has there been any change there, or can you just kind of run through who those folks are again?
Yeah, I mean, there's only 3 tenants in it. One of them is ourselves, because we're keeping the basement for event space so that we can fill that through weddings and events from the 2 hotels. So we're basically the basement event space tenant. The other 2 tenants, we have a partnership agreement with a company from Atlanta that developed a Lake Point sporting community called Sporting Consultants LLC. They're doing 2 other projects with us in Atlanta and Alpharetta. One duck pin bowling centre called Roaring Social, and the other one is called Fairway Social, which is a golf simulator with outdoor golf greens and that with it. So sports consultants are taking the top floor. We're putting a restaurant up there. We're putting 6 golf simulators from a company called Full Swing that is backed by Tiger Woods. And we're putting 12 duck pin bowling lanes in there on the top floor.
I think Full Swing, is that the same company that Topgolf uses?
They do.
Simulators?
They use them on their simulators. It is, yeah. On the Top Golf Suites version, they use Full Swing.
Oh, wow. That's amazing technology.
Yeah. And then on the first floor, we're putting an Italian concept restaurant in there, and then we're putting 5 or 6 different food concepts in a food hall type communal dining concept, which has been leased to a local gentleman, which I don't want to name at the moment until he signs a lease. But
when you say first floor, you mean street level?
Liberty Street level. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's going to be another really transformative project right there on the corner.
And I think he's probably on this call, so I'll just give him a nudge to hurry up and sign the lease.
Well, I just asked, we'll kind of move into the Q&A here, but I just have one more question I want to ask the 3 of you, because I know each of you have development projects in other cities or counties. How would you say the Winston-Salem Forsyth County development process compares to other markets? Are we pro development, good, better, worse than other places you work in? I feel like we've come a long way from where we used to be when we work with clients and we hear feedback that things have gotten a lot easier to get done here than they used to be. And I'm just curious if you guys have experienced that.
Well, from my point of view, we're developing in Charlotte and we're developing in Atlanta. Winston-Salem is much easier and much more proactive than those cities. Roanoke, we're going through a similar process, and they are very helpful, similar to Winston-Salem. So, I mean, from our point of view, the city are very approachable. They have a very good system for early design reviews. So we enjoy working with them. It's a pleasure.
That's good to hear.
In a town as small as Winston, we highly value our relationship, and it's extremely important to have that relationship with the city and county officials. These projects can't get done. There's so many layers start to finish, and some are better than others. No city's perfect as far as its, various processes along the development perspective, but, we're doing projects like this in other markets. We're doing a very similar one right now in Greensboro and in Guilford County, downtown Greensboro. And each city, I think is starting to learn from each other. I think we've come leaps and bounds as far as transparency and willingness to communicate, which ultimately at the end of the day is really what it's about when you're trying to work with a municipality to get some things over the finish line. We've been very encouraged, and again, we've got some good leadership in place, and it can always get better. But I think it's part of the developers and also part of the city officials to work together to help continue to push that forward.
Yeah, I'm on.
Well,
I agree.
Go ahead, Porter.
Yeah, Winston's been very pro, very friendly, pro development. That's why we're doing a second project there, and I would agree with Simon and the Coleman team that there's obviously ways to try to improve, but I think overall Winston on a relative basis is a much smoother and actually a faster process than most of the other cities that we've seen.
That's great to hear. I've always said that the best developers are the ones that can handle jumping through the most hoops, hurdles, and handle the most stress. So Based on hair color alone, Simon, I'm going to say you've dealt with more stress than the other two.
Yeah, I probably agree with that as well.
Well, I know we've got a bunch of good questions coming in. Ben, I'll turn it over to you here.
Yeah, thanks, Aubrey. Thanks, guys, for joining us today. We've got some great questions rolling in, and thank you guys for all you're doing for Winston-Salem and our surrounding areas. Simon, I can't wait to be a customer at your golf simulator and your bowling alley and all the good stuff you got going, and Coleman coming to all the restaurants you got coming. So with that being said, let's roll into some of these questions. Simon, we'll start with you. So the recent news article came out yesterday talking about how the Indigo is changing the management to hotel equities. And can you tell us a little bit about why that change has happened and what you see for the future for not only the Indigo, the Hyatt as well?
Well, there's two main reasons. I mean, one reason is we weren't particularly 100% happy with the management that was in place, but the main reason is Hotel Equities Group, as you probably are aware, and maybe people listening might not be aware, actually acquired the Courtyard on 4th Street, the new one that's due to open in the next few weeks. Hotel Equities Group are majority owned by an Opportunity Zone fund called Virtua Partners out of Arizona and California. Virtua Partners and Hotel Equities Group are a partner and investor with us on the Hyatt Place Hotel in Winston-Salem. They're a partner in a hotel we're constructing in Charlotte. They're a partner with a Curio Hotel that we're building in Alpharetta, and they're going to be a partner of a hotel we're building in Roanoke. So when you get two hotels next door to each other, it doesn't make any logical sense to have two different management companies when you would need two GMs and two directors of sales. So the economies of scale with having the same company, and a company that's got skin in the game, so they've got more motivation to make the project succeed and be profitable. So when COVID-19 came along, we weren't going to change management till probably end of the year, but it just gave us the opportunity, working on a skeleton staff, to make the transition much easier. So we decided to go for May the 1st and bring them in earlier. So, I mean, in all intents and purposes, this is just like reopening a new hotel with what's going on, getting the restaurant going back up and getting the hotel running. So it gave us the perfect opportunity to fast track what was going to happen before the end of the year. So they officially took over on May the 1st on Friday.
Great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it'll give you a kind of relaunch and opportunity to kind of recreate that buzz when it all opens up. So wish you the best of luck. We're excited for you.
Thank you.
Switch over to Coleman. So I don't think we touched on this earlier. I know you touched on the variable and your office concept at Bailey South. Can you tell us a little bit about your retail tenants? I know there's a restaurant concept, and it's been announced that Black Mountain Chocolate is coming. Can you tell us about how much space they're taking and a little update on the actual concept for the restaurant?
Question of the hour. Nobody cares about the office space. People want to know where you can go.
What's the retail?
So no, these are two concepts we're incredibly excited about, predominantly because they're bringing not only new concepts to Winston, but they're also with local talent. So there's people that they're very well understand local needs, what is in Winston, what's more importantly not in Winston. So I'll start with the front concept. When I say that, I mean, if you're standing on Patterson Avenue at Bailey Park, looking at the building, the whole first floor of the original power plant, it'll be about a 5,800 square foot, full service, hard to pinpoint, modernized restaurants into a category, but this would be a, chef driven, smaller plate, very engaging restaurant concept. You walk in the front door and there's gonna be a huge live fire cooktop. The chefs will be right in front of you. There'll be a big bar in the front where you'll be sitting literally right across the bar from the chefs as they're finishing the food. Really great dining inside. They have about a 2,000 square foot outdoor patio that'll be elevated just off the street right there. So it'll really be, and that's a very inspirational, I mean, most everybody on this call has been down the Innovation Quarter at night, in the evenings. So sitting out on that patio with the backdrop of the Innovation Quarter, and the talent that Travis Myers, who's the head chef, and his partner Ryan Aubrey will bring, I think is going to be phenomenal. There's a lot of outside involvement from outside of Winston on the team, kind of behind the scenes, which is encouraging to see outside people that are interested in helping support and back restaurants in Winston-Salem. The second concept will be in more of the new construction phase. If you walk in between our buildings, so Bailey Power Plant and Bailey South, towards the coal pit, Black Mountain Chocolate will be about 5,200 feet right behind the restaurant. Bailey South, given it's got the coal pit and the railroad trestle, and it's not really going to have a front door, you know, it's going to have about 270 degrees of access all the way around. But Black Mountain Chocolate will be an all-day concept. It'll be freshly made on-site pastries and coffee and chocolates and opportunities in the morning to go there, all the way through light lunch, and then it'll be a full-blown wine bar in the evenings. They're going to have areas for people to go in and do chocolate making classes for groups. There's going to be a big, probably 1,200 square foot outdoor patio that's underneath the railroad trestle in the back. So they're taking a much more engaging concept, and it'll be a nice, really nice retail area in the front. You got to think there's, 3,900 people in a 2-block radius. There's a huge influx of students across the street, undergrad and, medical school students that don't really have much of a place to go anywhere down there. So this will be a great opportunity to serve as a place for them to go and hang out and engage and continue to build community down there, which is what Black Mountain's really excited about.
Yeah, that the complement of kind of the wine, chocolate, coffee concept with complements, the new restaurant along with Cugino Forno, Alma Mexicana, the brewery. So you got kind of a little bit of everything. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So from a big picture, we're looking at Bailey Power Plant to be that block. Us and Wexford are very tightly working together to make Bailey Power Plant be the entire block that encompasses, the first phase of the power plant, Bailey South, and then the Morris building. So when people come down there, they're engaging with 250,000 square feet of space. It's not, I'm going to this one shop. It's, I'm going to go here and grab a beer at the brewery, and then I'm going to go do dessert and wine at Black Mountain, after dinner at Travis's Concepts. Like, every individual concept down there has to add value to the one that came before it. And you walk a tightrope because now you can't put a new pizza place down there. Now you can't so you have to be very thoughtful within that block of how do you create a true destination for that end of the innovation quarter, not just for, the significant population that is the innovation quarter, but with the rest of downtown.
Yep. Great. I know the community is going to be excited for everything to open. So congrats. Porter, we'll switch over to you. You are kind of all in on the West End market as we discussed. You've got West End Station that you sold, obviously right across the street. You picked the Easley for number 2 in Winston. What do you see West End as a growing area that's not going anywhere? What do you see West End looking like in 10 years, say?
Yeah, I mean, we really like I said before, being close to jobs. So, basically Winston-Salem, the largest 2 employment hubs is downtown and the hospital. And so, we're in between the 2 of them. So I think we're kind of, in terms of the West End neighborhoods, it's the best of both worlds. We actually, at West End Station, we had several couples where one person worked at the hospital and one worked downtown, and it was like the ideal spot for them. In terms of the future of West End, I mean, I think the local entrepreneurs that continue to come in and buy old buildings that, quite frankly, just aren't the highest and best use, whatever the tenant is right now. And so that's kind of the first phase, is like bring in new tenants, revitalize the existing infrastructure and the existing buildings that are there. That's the cheapest, most economical way to kind of infuse capital into an area. And then the second phase will be similar to what we're doing. We're taking, like at the Easley, 80 to 90% of that 4 acres was just surface parking asphalt, which is not the highest and best use for a downtown area. Same thing with West End Station. When we bought that, it was just kind of I think an old auto dealership that had, left, a long time ago. And so I think as you see these older buildings and vacant land gets filled in, you're going to get more density. You're going to get more people living there. You're going to get more retail, more walkability, more bikeability. So I think it's really going to become you know, a very favorable place for people that want to live close to where they work and walk to the bars and the restaurants, and so we're obviously very bullish. Not only
that's great to hear.
but West End, yeah.
Or I'll give you a quick anecdote. I was on the phone with a developer out of Pittsburgh who somehow found Bailey and was wanting to trade notes on the design and development process. And at the end, he said, "You mind if I put my daughter on the phone real quick?" And I was like, "Sure." And her first comment was, tell me about West End Station. I want to move there. And it ended up, she is going to be a resident, and her husband has looked at job offers downtown. So quick anecdote for somebody coming from Pittsburgh is exactly what you're looking for. She wants to live there so she can bike and walk to the hospital, and her husband can work downtown. So it's interesting to hear those stories from out-of-market people who have no concept of Winston-Salem whatsoever and identify exactly the purpose for why your project is there. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, when you and I first met, Porter and I got to tour Weston Station, that amenity package, you got, 10 Peloton bikes and a coffee bar, nitro coffee setup. It was all custom, everything. It was very, very impressive. That pool scene, hopefully you can get that opened up this summer.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But so while we're on you, Porter, I know we had teased our audience about a big announcement coming, and you and I have been working on looking for a potential third development for you, a third site in Winston. And you want to tell everybody where you're going and kind of the details of the development being number 3 in Winston?
Yeah, for sure. So we've got a piece of land under contract over in the Industry Hill district off of Trade, and I guess that's Martin Luther King. So we are planning around 240 units. It'll be a 5-story building. It'll be obviously very walkable to downtown along the Trade Street corridor, as well as all the amenities of Industry Hill. And what the guys are doing there, we think is really cool and exactly what our residents like to do, which is listen to music, have a couple drinks, and go throw axes. So it's a perfect combination. And then obviously with everything going on in downtown and the innovation quarter, Trade Street's just a quick little extension of that. And so, yeah, we're pretty far away from breaking ground on that. We're right now in the early stages of getting it rezoned and getting it designed. But yeah, that would be our third project. Will hopefully kick off, I would say, in the third or fourth quarter of next year.
That's really, really exciting. I know. Yeah, congratulations. I've seen early designs, and the 5-story so that obviously the Industry Hill submarket is exploding in downtown Winston right now, and that's kind of the cool new vibe. The 5 stories, that's actually where this site is. It's the highest point in downtown Winston. So going up 5 stories from there, having 360-degree views of Winston, looking back towards Pilot Mountain, there's going to be some insane views. So exciting stuff. Let's see here, going through some more of these questions. Yeah, so Simon, I know we worked on the LA Reynolds project together. What can you give us any updates out there in Louisville on the former LA Reynolds site?
Yes, well, we're fully designed and permitted there. We've had a slow time up to date, but we're looking to close the loan end of June with Southern First Bank. So we're hoping to be on site sometime between July and September the 1st on the entertainment section there, which will be more family orientated. We're putting some bowling lanes in there and some arcade games, making it very family, children friendly, with a lot of outside games in the beer garden. So that one is due to start sometime between July and September the 1st, with a completion date around spring next year on it. The apartment section of it, we have the zoning approved for it. We're actually working through a HUD loan at the moment, which is, as a porter will know, is very time consuming. So we're just at the start process. We in fact should have had the first meeting with HUD end of March, and it's been cancelled, and we haven't got a new date yet for them, but they're estimating 9 to 12 months to get that approved. So we'll be putting 244 apartments in there.
Great. How about, I know there was a big dog park planned. Is that still happening? I know that was a big draw.
Yeah, it still is. I mean, we're going to use the old part of LA Reynolds for markets, and then the dog park is going to be situated between the multifamily section and the entertainment section. So again, you'll be able to go and sit and have a beer and let your dog run riot.
Really cool.
Yeah. So that's still planned. Yeah.
Great. And everybody sending all these questions, thank you all so much. We've got a lot of questions coming in, and if we don't get to the questions today, we will answer these and shoot them out after this call. But Porter, going back to you real quick, I think you got a potential new resident at the new Industry Hill project. They asked how many units are coming.
It would be 240 units.
Got it.
But keep in mind, we won't start construction until third or fourth quarter of next year, and then it takes about 2 years to build. So I appreciate them planning ahead. But they may want to go live at West End Station for a couple of years.
For a year or so, and then head
And then
on
the
to
Easily.
and then
Yeah.
Hey Porter, how will the design of your project in Industry Hill? This is a question that came in that I think would be important to answer.
Yeah.
How will the design of your Industry Hill project fit that neighborhood differently than the West End Station that easily fit that neighborhood? I know you hit on that earlier, but Industry Hill is just in the name is very, a lot of old metal buildings and brick buildings and cool old, it's just a totally different vibe than West End. How will it kind of gel with that neighborhood?
No, that's a great question. And actually we had about an hour and a half call late last week with our interior designer, our architect, and Brian Ledbetter and his team with Airtight. Again, not to beat a dead drum, but we really like to get the local perspective. And Brian and his team knows that area really, really well. And he also spent a lot of time out in Portland. And there's a particular neighborhood, I can't remember the name of it, but he shot me a bunch of images of apartments that have been built in this kind of historic neighborhood that's similar to Industry. And so we have been talking about that. I mean, likely, instead of, we typically put down kind of a faux wood floor in our units. So we're talking about maybe just doing sealed concrete, especially in our amenity areas. So we'll integrate concrete, metals, brick as well, kind of on the outside as well, bring it into the building. But it should, we tend not to go too trendy or too kind of off the wall, but I think in terms of design, it'll be pushing the edge a little bit more than West End Station and Easley, which are a little bit more traditional architecture, a little bit more sophisticated, I would say, at West End than over at Industry Hill, which is going to be really cool for us to be able to be a little bit more creative and use different elements, materials as well as our finishes. So, for example, right now we're spending a lot of money on cabinetry for our units, and you go in these units and they may only be like a 600 square foot, 1 bedroom, but you have like the equivalent of a custom home for cabinetry. And it's like, no one needs all that cabinet. So we're starting to play with more open shelving, at least for your upper cabinets. And then even in your islands, instead of putting all, you would have more of a kind of an open island concept, so people can use it as a dining room table, or just for people gathering. So we're, a lot of developers just kind of and the group I worked with out of Atlanta, they have their shtick and they stick to it no matter what area. We tend to try to look at the particular project and fit, the design elements for that.
Great. Exciting stuff. Coleman, I asked Porter this earlier about the West End submarket. What do you think Innovation Quarter looks like in 10 years?
Oh man, great question. So I don't think we're done down there. I think there's a lot of opportunity and potential for what can be happening from a retail hospitality perspective. Some of these questions that are coming in are kind of like, what does Winston-Salem need? What is Winston-Salem's horizon? Where are we right now getting back to 2020 levels? I think we're going to take the rest of this year to really see what the impact is on our retail market downtown, to see where that sets us and where we can realistically go from here. Unfortunately, new construction in Winston-Salem is setting rents at levels, not because developers are over designing or developers are trying to get more rents. It's just that's the nature of new construction in this era. So it's going to take an interesting turn to see where retail and hospitality can go in the Innovation Quarter. I know Innovation Quarter has a lot of plans. I know the Wake Forest Atrium opportunity there is going to bring a lot of jobs and opportunity to the area, which is ultimately what the area is about, is economic development and growth. It's jobs and an economic center for downtown. So I think based on it being a very captive audience, when you take a little bit of a broader step back, over 5,500 people that are down there living, working, playing, learning on a daily basis, it is you got a great built-in opportunity down there for additional retail and hospitality that we're potentially looking at right now. So I think it's going to take an interesting turn. The office market is a very delicate balance between us building new product, which is obviously significantly more expensive than existing assets downtown. And it's, again, not any more expensive just because that's where construction prices are right now. But people are, take a look at the variable. They looked at a lot of opportunities where they could locate their headquarters, and they did so not because of anything, but simply where they can attract and retain top, young, next generation talent. So I think that's going to be a big driver that the Innovation Quarter can offer is, Porter's multifamily projects have got to get filled up by, intelligent, high performing, young talent. And we got to have companies that are continuing to expand to attract and draw those people. So I think that's really what the future of the Innovation Quarter is going to provide from just kind of a macro Winston-Salem perspective.
Fantastic. Well, that's exciting, and it's really cool to see. There's three folks on the call. You've each got your little sub markets you're developing in, but everything's all together. The walkability of downtown Winston-Salem. You'll be up at 633 North Liberty Simons Development. You can walk over to Porter's development in Industry Hill and easily walk to Innovation Quarter. So really, really cool stuff. We've got lots more questions rolling in here. We'll ask a few more here. Back to Porter, they're asking again, more residents. What's the amenity package going to look like at your Industry Hill project compared to like you've got at the Easley or Weston Station? Will there be a brewery right next to the brewery?
Yeah, exactly. It'll be in terms of the scale of the amenities should be pretty similar. We'll have our leasing office, clubhouse, as well as a fitness and or yoga spin room and a pool. So that's kind of like the, check the box for your Class A apartment community, full bells and whistles. As Ben has seen, with West End Station, we tend to maybe overdo our amenities at times, but at the end of the day, I think, one thing I think people are seeing now where whether you're going to work from home more often going forward. I personally have thought about selling my house and living in one of the communities because the amount of amenities you have literally at your doorstep, with a pool, with a fitness center, there's quite a bit of value there. And so yeah, we at the Easley, the cool thing there is our clubhouse will be 2 stories. We'll have this outdoor elevated terrace looking out over the baseball stadium. So during nights where they have fireworks, you'll be able to bring a glass of wine, bring a beer, sit outside. Some of it's covered, some of it's not covered, but it's kind of got that indoor outdoor feel. And so we're excited about that. But yeah, I think developers are always trying to kind of one up the next project with the amenity. We call it the amenity wars. Construction costs are going up, so it's trying to get creative with maybe not as much space, but you pack more into the space you have. I do think co-working space going forward is going to be one of those things you just have to have in an apartment community. And so that's one thing we're planning for the Easley and Industry Hill is a dedicated co-working space for our residents to go, given more people are going to be working from home now than ever.
Absolutely. That's definitely good thinking. Okay, great. Well, we'll wrap this up. Well, I'll kind of end with this last question because I see it coming several times. And to each one of you guys, what is downtown Winston-Salem missing?
Grocery
Feel free to
store.
jump in.
Grocery store.
You guys need to bring it. Start building, Porter.
Yeah, we need a grocery store. I mean, that's going to be a big driver for more people. That was the one question we always had at West End Station, where people wanted to live in downtown or near downtown, but it just wasn't as convenient. Given, I do think, having a grocery store, whether it doesn't even have to be a full scale grocery store, just something where more of these kind of markets would be helpful as well, throughout the areas around downtown.
I hate to give a vanilla answer, but job growth and population growth solves a lot of problems when you're trying to recruit new opportunities downtown. The sky's the limit, honestly. We wouldn't be delivering the most amount of retail square feet ever in downtown Winston if we didn't feel very bullish on, the type of retailers, the sophisticated, move the needle, add value to Winston-Salem kind of retailers. But these guys are not coming without significant, evidence of job growth and population growth. So, people are asking here, like, what's the elephant in the room that everybody's thinking about right now, which is what this is, impacting retail. It is. There's no, if you're saying it's not, then it's a little bit naive. This is having an impact on the potential to land and still recruit a lot of these retail concepts that have been stripped out of their, abilities to grow and expand into new markets. So I think we're going to come out of this pretty quickly. I think going into 2021, I think we're going to be able to really confidently come out of this, and I think Winston will be fine. But we're going to have to continue to materially grow our jobs downtown, our residences downtown, and just kind of the jobs across the community if we're going to continue to try to deliver more product downtown.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Simon, you got anything?
No, both them points are very valid points, and that's what we need to work on.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
I just want to slide one more quick question in for Simon, because I've gotten a text from a couple people and it came up in the Q&A, and we've only got a couple minutes left, so just hit me with it. What is going on with Marshall Plaza? Is there any news to announce, or when that'll start construction, or just kind of what's going on there?
The two things that are holding it up, like I said earlier, one is some design changes with the infrastructure, where we found that the existing sewers weren't in good enough condition to keep. So we've been redesigning and working with the city for that. The real kickoff is the start of the Hyatt Place, because we need to get the retaining walls up for the Hyatt Place to support and retain the park. So as soon as we get that permitted, approved, and get started, the park will start immediately behind it. So we've still got a few minor issues to agree with the city, and it's been difficult this last 6 weeks because there's been no meetings and we've not been able to go into meetings. So hopefully as things start opening up on May the 8th, we'll be able to get into the city a little bit more end of May and get the final bits approved. But it should really start in line with us recommencing on the Hyatt Place. And like I say, we have to get our retaining walls in and the sewer lines replaced before the park can start. So them two items need to be finished first.
Well, guys, on behalf of Ben and I and everybody at Linville Team Partners, you guys are what makes our job the most fun. New and exciting projects always makes it easier to come to work every day. And you guys have all made monumental investments in downtown Winston-Salem. Time, money, resources, everything. We appreciate that more than we could ever communicate. But so on behalf of everyone at Linville Team, thank you. Again, May 21st at 2 p.m., we'll have a local retail roundtable discussion. We are going to leave our recording and this Zoom on for just a minute. You guys are welcome just to sign off, but see if anyone else has any questions to roll in. We'll follow up with the three of you guys with some follow-up questions so we can get those answered. But with that being said, you guys have a great week, and we look forward to working with you on the next project as well. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.